I can't believe I actually love this game. Now, I love this game, ladies and gentlemen, but I sure cannot recommend this. And what do you mean by that, Muda? How could you love something but tell people, you're not really endorsing it all that much? That's because this game is weird, ladies and gentlemen. Death Stranding is a weird, weird game, okay? It's all over. It's one of the weirdest games that I've played this generation, probably in a very long time. And how fitting it's a Hideo Kojima video game. Hideo Kojima is the one dude that has made Ice Cube's entertaining, has put every little detail into something, made games that have been unanimously loved. He's sort of like the anti Todd Howard, where he hasn't made Fallout 76 yet. And most of his games that come out, in fact, all of them, as far as I know, don't have like these crippling bugs tossed into it. I don't know. He's a weird character. Death Stranding was one of those games, when I saw the original promotional material, I said, dude, Kojima's getting a little pretentious. I mean, honestly, when you're watching trailers of a video game where Norman Reedus is naked on a beach with a fetus, or you're watching Mads Mikkelsen in a World War II sewer with umbilical cords coming out of him, you can definitely tell that the medicinal marijuana is a little too heavy that Hideo Kojima is using, or there's some kind of like crazy fentanyl cut into the dude's like sandwiches. I don't know. Whatever it is, it's weird. I thought Kojima was out of his mind. And for years, we had no idea what the gameplay for Death Stranding was. I mean, was it some sci-fi shooter? Was it some new stealth action game? I mean, what were you releasing? Was it a horror game? Nobody could tell. The work was so cryptic. It was almost like the MGS2 ate again. It was the anti-MGS5 advertising campaign, where you give us everything, and we already figure out the entire video game, and then bam, there's no surprise. Death Stranding was a complete surprise till it basically launched. Now, this game, around 2 months ago, when the gameplay was really dived into, showed up to be a walking simulator, a pretty in-depth walking simulator, and also a delivery simulator. Now, I am here to tell you, MGS2, it had that big ride-in, like a bait and switch. This game isn't a bait and switch. 95% of this game is the most amazing delivery simulator you have ever played. It is the slowest burning game with an amazing story, amazing visual, beautiful soundtrack. Everything is really great in this game, save for the combat, but we'll get to that in a bit. Now, I think to truly understand the Rick and Morty levels of intelligence that you would need to understand Death Stranding, you have to look at its gameplay loop. So let me go over the gameplay loop real quick. You go from point A to point B, yes. You start off at these distribution centers. At these distribution centers, you're picking up orders, right? Now, this could be delivery of whatever you want, whether they be medical equipment, weapons, photographs, whatever kind of package exists, you will deliver in this game. So at this point, once you're delivering, you're going from point A to point B. Now, point A to point B, you'll have to gauge what are you going through? What are your hazards? Are you going through an open field? Are you going through mountains, rocky terrain, potential enemy territory that you'll be sneaking through? You have to gauge all of this. And once you gauge all of this, you then fabricate equipment like ropes, ladders, trolleys, vehicles, weapons that you will need to get through to your destination. Now, at this point, once you have really committed to one path, you are taking that path to get to your destination. Sometimes, you can say, hey, there's a rocky path, it's safer, but I'll have to go on foot. You can do that and build accordingly. Otherwise, you can say, here's a risky but quicker route, I can use a vehicle, and, provided that I'm relatively careful, I can make it with all of my packages in one piece. Or you could do what I do, where you could say, hey, maybe I'll do a half and half combo, right? Maybe I'll do a bit of a rocky route, have a vehicle, sort of ditch things here and there. There's a lot to consider when you're traversing from point A to point B. The open world in this game, not only is it visually amazing, but it serves a gameplay purpose. Like I said, rocky terrain, smooth terrain, roads, whatever, these things all change how you have to traverse, whether you do it on foot, whether you do it with a bike, or with a full-on truck. These are things you have to consider. The world is harsh, trust me on that. There are things you can build to assist you, like watchtowers, bridges, generators that will charge up your electrical equipment when you're out on the field. You'll have to gauge these things carefully. Beyond just delivering from point A to point B, you're also connecting the world together on some supernatural internet called the chiral network, right? So basically, as you're delivering to people around, you're getting these stars that you fill up on each individual person. These stars means that not only will you have a greater affinity with the location, they'll be able to store more stuff, generate more stuff, and give you newer gear that you can fabricate, but you're building that network. And with that network, you connect to the in-game chiral network, like sort of the metagame, Dark Souls type deal, where you're effectively, once you've connected an area into the network, once you go outside, you'll see things like ladders, structures, everything. These are other players working together to deliver packages and help one another out. This game is incredibly Canadian when it comes to that. But that's sort of beyond the point. That's the general premise. You pick up something from point A and you go all the way to point B. When you're out on the field, once you've basically packed your gear, balanced the weight, you're out there and you're holding the left trigger and right trigger to basically not stumble. People say that this game's a walking simulator, and you're right. It's one of the most in-depth walking simulators you'll play. The actual walking in this game is so fucking amazing that it literally resembles real-life walking down to a T. You know, the whole stumbling with the weight on you, falling to the left, right? There's like an animation for everything. And not only that, but there's full momentum. So basically, you don't stop on a dime. In fact, your input lag, your input latency in the game is literally correlated to how much weight you're carrying. So if you tower on this Jenga piece on you, you know, you're carrying like 150 kilos of weight, it's going to reflect that. Whereas if you're carrying like 20 kilograms, you're going to be a lot more nimble than you would be, you know, if you were carrying that big piece of tower. Now, in your journey, all right, with all that delivery going on by, you might have to go through some combat. I sure as hell really didn't. 5% of this game, out of the 30 hours I've already played, I got this game a little bit earlier, have been combat oriented. Like I've actually had to, you know, use a gun and throw some punches around. For the most part, it's not bad. It's actually serviceable, but it's nothing to write home about. In fact, the combat in this game is a complete afterthought. When you're not delivering your packages, you're actually engaged in this combat or sneaking, if you can even call it sneaking, through enemy territory. Basically, in this game, there's two types of enemies you have to go through, human ones and BTs. The human enemies steal your packages because in the game they're addicted to delivering packages. I shit you not, that's an actual story point. Really stupid if you think about it, but basically these human enemies will steal your packages and that's about it. But what you have to realize about it is the AI in this game is not incredibly smart. Fighting these things, even if there's like 10 of them and you're going fist to fist, it's still easy. This game has no difficulty to the combat. You can set the game to hard difficulty, but the AI doesn't change. It's so easy to exploit, it's so easy to deal with. The game gives you choices and to use non-lethal or lethal, and this is also a big negative point of the game. So I would say about 15 hours into the game, you don't actually start getting like assault rifles, handguns, shotguns. The game gives it to you later. For the first like several hours, the game will give you like blood grenades, which you used against BT primarily, or bola guns, which you also used against BT, but this is basically a weapon that sends out a string of bolas to just incapacitate individuals or outright knock them out. You can use this purely non-lethally. In fact, most of the game in the beginning is just non-lethal. I'm pretty sure the only way you can kill someone is run them over. But moving on to that, when the game actually gives you assault rifles and shotguns, it gives you a non-lethal and a lethal variant of it. So, quick case in point. Let's say you unlock the assault rifle. You also get the non-lethal version. What's the difference? One knocks one out and one outright kills them. So you're going to use the lethal version when you're fighting BTs because you really can't knock them out when you're especially when you're fighting one hands-on. But there's no reason to go lethal for the human enemies, right? The game so heavily de-incentivizes killing that it's not even funny. So when you kill a human being, they become dead, right? They're going necro in this game. How dead bodies in this game work is that as you die, your soul might go to the afterlife, but your body is going necro, meaning that in like 48 hours, 24 hours even, the body will turn into a fucking nuclear bomb and wipe out a chunk of the land. You can see this, it's called a void out. It basically means the properties of life and death have combined in such a way that they cannot cease to... It's like dividing by zero if you think about it. It just completely voids the area. Now, that being said, why one would be violent and cause something that in no way benefits you when you can just as easily non-lethally fight an enemy and knock them out and deal with it that way is beyond me. Like, it makes playing the game so easy. Like, I would have liked it if killing these... If the option to non-lethally go through the game was a lot more difficult than it was portrayed in this. If I get assaulted by an enemy team, or like the enemies in this game, it should be dramatically easier to outright kill them and suffer the consequences later than just as easily knock them out and be on your merry way. This game absolutely drops the ball there. The combat is not that exciting. Like I said, it's serviceable at best. The BTs themselves, which are these scary, like floating things from the realm of the dead, are also not as scary. See, in this game, you get the blood grenades very early on in the game. You can fabricate the hell out of them. So if you have like a chunk of these grenades with you, and let's assume that you go into BT territory, the whole thing is to sneak through and hold your breath. If at some point they catch you, they suck you down and they take you to this gauntlet arena to fight an even bigger BT. Now, some of these BTs are different, but at the same time, like, they all play the same. Like, they all have really slow, easy to telegraph attacks, and the combat against them is really easy. Again, if you have these grenades, whip them out, chuck them. I guarantee you after like, what, 2-3 minutes, you'll win the battle and it'll be all over with. There was one point where I fought two at the same time, and it was really, really easy. I have not died in the game once, well, I've only died 2 times. One when the game forced me to at the beginning as a tutorial, and one when I actually, it was a story element, and I was carrying an item, and I wanted to see, you know, what like, there was a moment where you had to choose between living or dying, and I just wanted to see what dying was like. But honestly, there was nothing to this game that posed any threat. I have not died once in my 30+ hours into the game. Hasn't happened. Maybe I'll die towards the tail end of the game, I don't know, but I haven't gotten any of that game over crap going on. So all in all, ladies and gentlemen, this game is great, very great when it comes to the delivery aspect. It's just the combat is very iffy and just out there. You're fighting the BTs. The BTs aren't terribly too difficult, like I said. So I would have wished if you were to create a supernatural scary enemy, at least make them super difficult. Make it a near death sentence to be caught by this. It would make going into their territories that much more scarier. But at the end of the day, there has to be some flaws to every video game out there. As a whole, I've really enjoyed Death Stranding. I think this might be one of my favorite games on the PS4 in general. And while this video isn't a complete review, I guess I can cover every aspect so far. Putting 30 hours into this game, I still have a whole last act to finish, and still some of the middle act, I would say. I will say this much, Death Stranding, and the sum of its parts, is a very decent game. Story-wise, I think it's one of the best Kojima stories that I've honestly been witnessing. The cinematography and the Kojima cutscenes, which, by the way, this game has like MGS2 tier cutscenes. Like, we're talking about like a lot of them, like MGS4 2 levels of cutscenes. Like, there's just heavy amounts of them. There is a lot of gameplay, of course, but the cutscenes, gladly, because I love Kojima cutscenes, are a lot of them, and they're all shot really well. People who are into like cinematography, people who are into like, you know, camera work will love this. The soundtrack for the game is beautiful. Not just the songs that are played as you traverse, but just the ambient score of the game is so brilliant. The graphics are amazing. Like, even on a console, I've been blown away, and I can't wait to buy this game again on the PC to run it ultra-wide, everything maxed out, because it's that pretty of a game. The gameplay loop, you know, seemed really boring. You know, when I play an open world game, I often think of the open world as a level select. I'm just going from one point to the other and triggering a cutscene and playing through a scripted scenario. With this game, you have to remain 100% focused on the open world. Stumbling, whatnot, you know, traversal, everything is requiring human input. The open world is the star. Going from point A to point B is the journey. That journey is the focal point. It's not even so much about the destination, it's everything in between. Which, despite being, on paper, an incredibly boring gameplay idea to deliver packages, basically to do a fetch quest, but once you get into the Zen-like method of doing it over and over and over again, it just sucks you in. Like I said, this would be something that I would normally consider boring if you told me about it, but after playing it by myself, I have realized I really like it. I really love it, and I would like to see more games that go outside the box and think of doing their gameplay in such a similar fashion. But ladies and gentlemen, as always, there are flaws to the game. While the delivery is great, the only downside I have to this game is the combat. There are a few good boss battles, yes, but the BT battles, at least so far, have been utterly disappointing. The combat has been, you know, serviceable, but after playing so many games with combat as a focus, this game is, you know, lackluster in comparison to them. All in all, ladies and gentlemen, it's a game that I really love, but because of how niche it is, I honestly can't recommend it. I think this game really needs a demo on PSN, so you can download, play like an hour or two of it, and really gauge for yourself. It's a game that you have to play, but it's so niche that I can understand people who don't like Death Stranding. I get it. You know, it's an acquired taste. It's a game that either you love it or you hate it. But honestly, I really love it. So ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am going to edit this video, I'm going to upload it, prep it for release, and go right back to Death Stranding. So this is me, Mood, and I am out.